This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
Out of it, and all the unions will stop giving all their money to the socialists, but I doubt it.
Well, how good has this union been? If the union hasn't been able to get paid leave, which is apparently a sticking point by now, what good has this union been?
Well, I would be shocked if members didn't have paid sick leave. I really would. Everybody's got paid sick leave.
So the question is, how much paid sick leave?
So how much? And I'm willing to bet if you drill down. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will admit it publicly on the next show that I come on. But I'm willing to bet if you look at this union contract that rail workers do indeed have paid sick leave. They're just trying to get more of it. And the lamestream press is misrepresenting it as if they don't have any paid sick leave. Because these would be the only union workers I've ever heard of that don't have paid sick leave. Yeah. Have you ever heard of anybody working in any corporation anywhere that doesn't have paid sick leave? Full-time employees?
Not a big corporation, no.
Well, I mean, you get paid sick leave at Starbucks, don't you?
Yeah, well, mostly.
I don't know.
Maybe not at the corporate, yes. At the franchise, little individual franchise, maybe not. But still, you're talking about a major corporation who has had unions forever. They probably have some form of sick leave. And rail is such a...
They might call it PTO, personal time off, because a lot of large organizations, paid time off, they don't break it out. It's you can use it for whatever you want.
It's just not sick leave, it's just leave. It's just you can take it how you want. You don't have to justify your your leave, you just take it. But the question I've got is, now I've lost my train of thought, is that, no, I've completely lost my train of thought, John.
Well, I'll jump in with a thought until yours comes back. Go. How about that? Because I'm having the same problem. It's Thanksgiving. It was my birthday. My birthday had a 0 in it. I don't remember what the first number was. I'm pleading old today, folks. So what's funny in a kind of a sick way is that all these Democrats want to force the union to stay at work and not strike because they've managed to screw up the economy so bad that they realize that this might be the last straw that broke the camel's back. Because, an awful lot of goods in this country travel by rail. Not nearly as much as by truck. I think truck is much more now. It used to be almost all by rail. And it should be all by rail, because it should be, logistically a whole lot cheaper. Sunk cost, rails, locomotive pulling, hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo. But anyway, that's a whole different show. The fact that they're pro-union and yet they want to force the union to go to work is kind of funny to me, and I'm hoping there's some fallout.
Well, things like rail is such a unique work environment, right? Which is kind of why you can understand the need for maybe the need for a union contract, because it's such a unique work environment, right? You're traveling from across the country sometimes, and so it's such a unique work environment that you can kind of understand the need for someone to sit down there and say, okay, how do we actually navigate, how do we properly compensate people for this unique work environment? I can actually understand that. There are a few work environments, I wouldn't necessarily mind if I was a person who mind having a union type thing to kind of help deal with those issues. But if they're not...
Tommy, get out of here. No, I'm kidding.
I said there's some, man. Hey, as long as it's a voluntary process, as long as no one's forcing you to join the union in order to work, then it's fine. It's the question is, now we have so many, can you actually work at a rail without being a member of the union?
I doubt it very seriously, because it's part of the Teamsters.
Yeah, you have to join.
The major union.
You have to pay to work. And I was always taught, when I was in school, back, 35 years ago, or whatever the heck it was, that if you have to pay to get a job, it's a scam. You shouldn't have to pay to work. They pay you to work. And so you're paying somebody.
I absolutely agree.
I'm just saying. All right, but anti-work to act your age. More disgruntled workers are complaining. Now on this, we talked about Reddit. CNBC ran a thing about how they're running to Reddit.
I read the article. We actually, believe it or not, based upon the last conversation, folks, you might not think that we actually do any research before we come on the show, but we do. And we share articles and we go over them so that we or at least sound like, other than tonight, that we know what we're talking about. And I read, this CNBC article that James was kind enough to send me about how people, don't like working and they don't like working conditions, and they, when they go to HR, nothing is done, and they're worried that if they go to HR, that if they go to their manager, they're well, first of all, they'd have to go to their manager. Managers are mean, and they don't want to do that, so they want to go to HR, but HR doesn't get anything done. They just listen to them and things stay the same. Well, maybe that's because you're at work and sometimes it's hard, and that's why they pay you, because if it wasn't hard and sometimes you had to do things that you didn't want to do, then it wouldn't be work, it would be play. But that's just my theory.
Yeah, it's a strange cultural condition. I grew up in kind of the me generation, right? Back 30 years ago, everybody complained about the selfishness, right? But there was a strange selfishness in this. There's a very strange, completely selfish. At least in my time, everybody was really concerned about themselves. They didn't care what you were doing. They were out chasing their own dreams, and they didn't care. All right, well, that's fine. But now, in this selfishness, they want everybody else to change for them.
I'm shocked by that.
It's a strange. Well, the work environment needs to change to accommodate my needs. Well, but the work isn't here for your needs. If you don't like the work environment, fine. I have left many a job because I didn't like the work environment. I have no problems with that. You go find one that you do. Right? That's called being a responsible human being. You create the work environment you need. Right? I created my own job because I didn't want to at times because I didn't want to work as a.
I always changed I'd either leave or goad the people into sending me on my way with a goodbye present, or I'd change the environment. As a matter of fact, I once created, when I was doing leadership management training, a program called Creating an Environment of Accountability. Turns out that somebody had trademarked that phrase, and their lawyer sent me a letter and said, stop. So I simply changed it to, I said, creating a culture of accountability. And they made me stop using that through a threatening letter. So I said, well, let's create an environment of accountability, so I could do the same thing. So there's a word accountability. And accountability is that, you're responsible for doing certain things as part of your job. And we'll catch you doing things right if you're doing the things you're supposed to, and we'll talk to you about not doing the things you're supposed to if you're not doing them right. So the idea that the people who are working are saying, well, I don't like that, I think I should be required to do different things, is just kind of alien to me. And it's alien to you too. And I think it's not alien to these folks. It's kind of scary. If you don't like the job, leave. I mean, if you walk into a restaurant and you don't like their food, walk into another restaurant. If you go into work and you don't like what they're asking you to do, go work somewhere else.
Yeah, you took
Pretty
a job.
simple.
Yeah, you took a job, right? And most jobs do tell you what their job entails before you take it, right?
Or at least somewhere shortly after you take it. Yeah, and during the probationary period where you go, you want me to do what? I'm not doing that. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apparently there's a whole bunch of people who've just decided that they want to work, and it was hilarious in this article. And I hate to give this organization any credit, but I've got to say, read it. It was on CNBC, Communist News Broadcasting Company. That people are choosing not to work and living off of their savings and investments. And I'm wondering how they have savings and investments if at some time they didn't work to get them. And when they got those savings and investments, didn't they have to do some things they didn't enjoy to get them?
Well, maybe not.
I'm very confused.
Maybe they have nest eggs granted to them by their
their rich parents. Yeah.
How many of these kids are just mad that they actually do something? They spent all their lives being catered to in school and at home, and have their mothers and fathers drive them around, take them everywhere, and then all of a sudden they get out into the world, and now it's no.
You're so judgmental, James. jobs.
I don't know if that's true or not. But,
I don't know.
Hey, I've been a failure most of my life, so it's cool. I've got no problems with it. But I never blamed the world. I always looked in the mirror, said it's my fault. Ultimately, it's my fault that and I had to change me.
Yeah.
You can't expect the world to change, and they want the world to change, but the world changes slowly, and it only changes by you taking control of it.
But actually, in a work environment, the environment can change very, very quickly, as long as you can show the people whose job it is to increase the bottom line, that the way you want to do things will float more money to the bottom line, or take some money off the top line, take some money off the expense side, or add some money to the profit side. Then they'll be very quick to call you a genius, maybe even give you a bonus and do it your way. But if you're simply saying, no, I don't want to do that, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and you kind of have to earn that, right? You're going to have to do some stuff you don't want to do to get to the point where say, hey, look, I've been doing it this way for a while now. Yeah. It's dumb. Can we do it a different way? When we talk about doing it a different way, they'll be willing to listen to you. But if you spit there for 3 months, you barely know the job, and then you're saying, I don't want to do it, who's going to listen to you? Your mother wouldn't even listen to you in that situation. Trust me, I know my mother wouldn't. Yeah. So, and my mother loves me. So, speaking of love, this is going to be a strange segue here. The name I can't pronounce. The name I can't pronounce. Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping, or however that is.
We'll probably get threatening letters from the Chinese consulate over this.
Oh my God, yes. The protests in China have taken place in dozens of cities across the country.
Many different kinds of protests.
Yeah.
Protests against lockdowns, mostly lockdowns. Protests against basically communism in general. Protests against Xi being kind of a president for life and a dictator. Just Chinese folks getting fed up. And it looks like Xi's response, which sounds like improper use of English, but that's the name, folks, Xi, is not to crack down more, but to actually lighten up on the zero COVID policy, because they're the only, I just thought of something that cracked me up about this when we were doing research for it. Fauci made a comment on the draconian nature of their lockdowns that didn't seem to really be accomplishing anything or have an end in mind. And I'm thinking back to our draconian lockdowns that weren't doing any good and didn't seem to be having, and this guy's commenting about the Chinese. But anyway.
Literally arresting people alone on a beach. The guy's sitting alone on a beach, he's going to send cops out to arrest him. It was safer for you just to leave him there.
Because the cops might have caught COVID. Yeah.
Or spread it, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
outside.
It's
folks, how many
ridiculous.
cases there are, proven cases of people catching COVID from casual outdoor contact? All the research that I've done is that would be a big fat zero, ladies and gentlemen. So crazy. But in China, it's even worse. I mean, they've literally locked people in their houses for 100 days in major cities of millions of people, because they're trying to keep COVID from taking hold.
One of the reasons it sparked this protest was a fire, that people were locked in their houses, in their apartments, because they couldn't get out because of a fire, and because you're afraid of COVID. How many people are you willing to sacrifice to not save people's lives over COVID? Is the question. But the question is, is this going to have a Tiananmen Square moment again? For those of us our age, we saw it the first time. Tank Man and all those pictures from that. Really the last mass protest we've seen in China.
And how many people did they kill in that square? Thousands. They killed thousands in that square, which is a fraction of the 50 million that Mao, that everybody quotes, Mao's little red book, killed through starvation and other acts. But the guy can do whatever he wants, basically. As long as you don't stand up, as long as you're not the nail sticking up, the hammer of the Chinese Communist Party will not smash you down. But the minute that you stick your head up, I have a little bit of hope, maybe, that it'll change a little bit in China. Like I have a little bit of hope it might change a little bit in Iran. And it doesn't matter whether it's a mullah or an absolute dictator who's supposedly an elected official. Representative government is what folks need throughout the world, and capitalism.
Well, what's interesting about Tiananmen Square is a few years after Tiananmen Square is when China started to open up and liberalize their policies. So whether Tiananmen Square had an immediate impact, it probably wasn't, but long term, they did. China opened up, they became more friendly, and of course now they're going backwards again, which is why the protests. You can't give people freedom and then take it away.
So are we going backwards. Yeah.
And look at the dissension in our political discourse. There's, these things are related. The less freedom we have, the more
upset
people.
Can we say pissed off on the show?
Well, you just did.
Okay, yeah. No, we're despite the fact that we want to run to mommy and daddy government, people don't like being told what to do in this country. At least this person doesn't.
Yeah, no, we don't like being told what to do. But speaking of told what to do, even though this has nothing to do with being told what to do, Sacramento liberals and Placer County conservatives are on different planets. And the only people who seem to care are the Sacramento liberals. The people in Placer County, the conservatives, especially mostly it's talking about school boards, if my memory serves.
Was it 28 out of 31 school board seats in Placer County schools were not Republicans, conservatives. You call them conservatives, but I have a feeling that if you drill down, you'd find some libertarians in there as well.
Yeah, probably.
It's just that the liberals and they shouldn't be liberals. They're not classic liberals. Folks, look up the meaning of liberal somewhere and see what it is.
But look at a dictionary from 10 years ago. Don't go on the web and look it up.
Don't look it up now. If you look up a classic liberal, they're basically a libertarian, which is why we have the show. We should call it Classic Liberal Counterpoint. These are folks that believe that schools should teach people how to do reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not pound, what's currently labeled woke stuff down their throats. That they should hold people accountable. That they are following the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King, who wanted folks to. That the color of a person's skin shouldn't determine whether they have access to or can apply to or be admitted to a school, and it shouldn't affect their grades or anything. They're actually want schools to do what schools were purported to do when I was a child, which is teach people how to have the skills necessary to eventually get a good job and pay lots of taxes.
Government loves collecting taxes.
Yeah.
But it's the fact is that the people in Sacramento, the Sacramento liberals, think that other people care. Like,
they care what they think.
Yeah. Why? Why would you think that these people who are do you care what the liberals in Sacramento County care what the conservatives in Placer County think?
No, because conservatives are stupid. Liberals think conservatives are stupid.
Well, maybe it's liberals think anybody but them is stupid.
Oh, well, that's it. Yeah.
Maybe that's the choice there is that it's not stupid.
It's funny. It's hilarious because the coastal elite thing, the woke coastal elites, and against everybody in the middle of the country, basically, it's true. I mean, the thinking process that goes on is completely different, and. The fact that the elite, I hate that word liberals because they're not liberals. The elite socialists on the coast believe that what they think should matter to the people in the middle. The people in the middle just look at them and say, "You folks are crazy," and then they go and live their lives. So the fact that they think that their opinion should matter is hilarious.
Well, and the thing is, the socialist elite that you call them, they're the ones who are activists. They're the activist crowds. They're the ones who want to get involved in government. The average person doesn't want to be bothered with government. They don't want anything to do with government.
Do you remember when nobody cared what happened in an election because the government was small enough to where it didn't intrude in every single part of your life? Elections came up and we go, oh yeah, who should I vote for? Yeah, there. And that's it. The news wasn't full of government all the time about everything. This government agency, that judge, that senator, that president. Nobody cared because government stayed out of the way. Now it's omnipresent. It's in everything. You have to care, unfortunately, because they're controlling our lives.
And then we wonder why we're so divided. So which cities, a question about, it kind of dovetails on this Sacramento liberals, Placer County conservatives, who's actually moving to Sacramento? Because Sacramento is actually one of the few cities in California that's gaining residents.
Yeah, it's weird. It's gaining, I think it's gaining, well, maybe Sacramento County, maybe not Sacramento City. Gaining residents from San Francisco, we know, because they're getting out of the hell of San Francisco and taking the remaining equity in their the place that's left while the homeless camp out in front of their house, and moving to places like Sacramento and Stockton and Merced and the Central Valley. But they're people from Washington State moving, out of the coastal elites to
the coastal elites.
The coastal elites to more of the middle section, and everywhere but Sacramento, the rest of the middle of California is as if you move to a very hot Missouri, if you look at it from a political perspective, like how people vote in Bakersfield and Merced and Stockton and Redding and Red Bluff, but an awful lot of folks from Chicago are moving to Sacramento. And Chicago is like a very cold San Francisco. They'd if it wasn't so cold in the winter, they'd have our same homeless problem that we have here, where you freeze to death in Chicago if you don't have a place to stay at night, and in New York unless you sleep on the grate on the side. So people are getting fed up with cities where there's high rates of crime and prosecutors who don't prosecute, and riots and bad schools, and moving to Sacramento because they haven't figured out we got all that going on here yet, I guess.
Well, they're just going to bring this. They're going to bring their same attitudes here, and we've already got that attitude here. And the quality of life here in Sacramento has deteriorated in the last few years, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Yeah. It just has.
50. Yeah.
And what is? I don't know why they're moving here, but okay, we're just as expensive as all these other places. We got better weather, I suppose. And if you're from San Francisco, it's cheaper for now, but it's not going to be because we're not building new housing. We have the cities building low-income housing, but that doesn't help the rest of us. Doesn't help the middle class or the upper middle class.
Well, it's by building low-income housing with government money that you and I couldn't afford to. If we had to pay what they're paying for low-income housing, we couldn't afford to live there.
No. Yeah. No, the most expensive housing to build is low-income housing. Once you get the government involved, right? That's what happens. It becomes itself.
Folks, an elephant is a mouse built to government specs. Just remember that next time you want the government involved in anything.
Okay. Well, we got like 2 minutes, so it's going to move on to our last topic. 57. There's a quirk about that has affected 57,000 Sacramento residents, about 57,000, in the way the redistricting happened and the timing of the redistricting and the elections. And so now there's 57,000 Sacramento residents who they say they don't have a representative, which is actually not true. They do live within a border that has a representative, but they didn't get to vote for the representative because the representative.
And it's East Sac.
Yeah.
A lot of it's East Sac, and East Sac, folks, is a pretty well-off little neighborhood. You would think that people there would notice something like that and be aghast about it, that they don't want somebody who, represented Del Paso Heights representing them or something like that. Heaven forbid.
Yeah, so now they're going to have the mayor says, I'm going to step up and I'm going to act as kind of your representative instead.
Woo woo!
Well, you actually do have a representative. You didn't get to vote for them, but they are the person who is responsible for representing you. It just, it's a couple years. It's a quirk in the system, but quirks in systems happen. And to whine and moan about it, it shows how much of this we've talked about today is just people whining and moaning about quirks of life that for the rest of us, it's like, okay, it's not ideal, but we'll live. We do have someone to call if there's something's going wrong. No. Right? I do have someone to call if the street light goes out. I do actually have somebody to call.
I hope you do.
But they're acting like they don't. And that's the problem with it. It's a bunch of whiners. And I'm just,
You know, James, I would think, based upon this couple of things you've said on the show tonight, that you're tired of people whining.
I am tired of
Am I getting
hypocrisy
a hint?
and whining.
Hypocrisy and whining?
It's hypocritical whining. I'm sick of hypocritical whining. We live in California. We are surrounded by hypocritical whining, and I'm getting really tired of it. Yeah.
Choose to live here, you're going to hear a lot of hypocritical whining. That's right.
Maybe it's time to move, and we're out of time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, John, for being here. And please remember to love everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
And don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. It's a weird little show we had tonight, huh?
Good Lord, what the heck was that? Yeah.
Honest, folks, we didn't stop at the bar on the way here tonight.
Well, no.
I think people get strange around the holidays.
Maybe.
You know,
it's been a stressful week.
I had this birthday with a 0 in it, and then there's Thanksgiving. You know, I fell off the chair, and then Christmas is coming up.
They're making me wear this thing for 9 extra days. So yeah, I got to wear this till you said the 10th.
Sounds like you're whining to me there,
I am
bro.
whining. I am tired of the whining, but I'm not whining. Yeah, okay, I'm whining.
And the bummer about wearing something like that is not the itching, but how weak your hand and arm is when you're done, and how it doesn't respond to your brain.
Oh, it's not even the itching. It's just it bangs on everything.
Yeah.
It's like because your wrist is now like half an inch bigger than it used to be. So banging on doorknobs.
This is the time where I would go to a bar and just hit people with it and say, "I'm sorry, it's a stupid cat."
I don't know if I can get away with that, John. I am not quite.
I know I couldn't. You see all the scars I got? I don't get away with anything.
Oh man. So we've got 15 seconds, John. What do we got? What didn't we talk about? Oh, the jobs. There was increased 127,000 private sector jobs.
Which is way less than there should have been, and losses in manufacturing. The only places there were gains were